There I go. All right. Welcome, everyone. My name is Gordon Wedderburn from GW Jazz. And this series is a part of an online series, Grow at Home, with local artists, actually, across the creative spectrum. Um, Grow Hackney is, for me personally, a really wonderful creative hub that facilitates and accommodates creatives across the board. Whether you're working in stone, whether you're a poet, whether you're a musician, Grow facilitates and is deeply rooted in the community. So big up Grow. I, in my capacity as a host, to dig into the personal spaces, as it were, and musical spaces of some of the finest musicians, young musicians in the city that are embedded in the fabric of jazz and music in London and are making contributions in their own rights individually and as a collective. These guys form Stratos. Have I pronounced it correctly? Stratos, as in stratosphere. And Stratos is the house band of Grow Hackney. They have the distinction of playing in the most picturesque place in the summer in London. And let me introduce you to the guys. Our guitarist is Boris Latinov, our saxophonist Dom Pusey, our drummer Jamie Murray, and our bassist is Rio Kai. And I speak of the instruments here in this forum, but these guys are all multi-instrumentalists in their own right. They're all leaders in their own right, and they're all fantastic musicians in their own right. So right now, Stratos, big up yourself. Now, as I said before, I'm gonna start with the man wearing the dark glasses, Boris. But let me sort of create a little scenario. I came into this space, this London creative space, as a participant in 2009. And I started by doing radio, which I still do to this day. And I remember back then, I was into people like Soweto Kinch, Shabaka Hutchins, people like those who were in the scene, Robert Mitchell, who were in the scene and who had been making a name for themselves and contributing to what people are calling a London jazz scene that started 3 or 5 years ago. But as practitioners in the space know that this London jazz scene and this UK jazz scene has been evolving over years. Many contributors, a lot of people who have not been given their due and people don't know about them, but who contribute to the richness and lay the foundation for what is happening now. Now, again, as I say, I started doing my thing in 2009. And Boris, what I want to ask you is, where were you in 2009 and what were you doing?
Oh, okay. Thank you for the intro. It's lovely having you here. Where was I in 2009? In Switzerland. And I had finished, I was finishing high school. And yeah, I was playing in a rock band as well.
So you're originally from Switzerland?
Yeah, that's about it.
Cool. All right. So
yeah.
So Switzerland, playing in a rock band, and you're here playing in a jazz band and contributing massively to the scene here. Now, and everybody prepare for this one, because I'm going to ask everybody, when did the musical journey start for you? And what kicked it off?
Are we talking individually here or?
No, individually. I'm still with Boris, but prepare yourselves, everybody, because I'm coming to you with the same answer, with the same question.
Okay. When did it start? Well, it's hard to say. Really, I loved it. I've always been fascinated with the guitar since I was a kid, and got my guitar in America when I lived there, and played quite a bit when I was 10, and yeah, I got on and off until I was maybe 20, let's say, or 18. Then and then I got into it more, especially when I came to London.
When did you come
when
to
I was
London?
21. Yeah.
Okay.
2011.
2011.
Yeah.
So 2 years after I kicked my journey off. I'm gonna come back to you, but Dom, let me hear your story. Let me hear your story. Where were you in 2009, and what were you doing?
2009, I was still in school in Hertfordshire, so not a million miles away from London.
Mm-hmm.
I started at university. I went to the University of Leeds in 2010. So 2009, I was still just in school with no real idea what I wanted to do with my life. I mean, some may argue that's still the case, but I got a bit more of an idea now.
Were you playing an instrument then? When did you start? When did your musical journey start?
Yeah, well, my dad is a professional organist and singer.
There you go.
So I started playing piano when I was 6 years old, and then I started playing sax when I was about 8. And then in my teens, I took up the guitar and bass, and I was a singer-songwriter for quite a while. Doing that stuff, I was definitely more interested in the rock end of things, and then metal. And then I think, I don't know, somehow the virtuosity of more kind of the metal bands attracted me back to the saxophone and back to jazz. And I started getting vaguely interested in playing jazz around the age of like 16. But it didn't really hit home that it could be something that I could do. I didn't start to really love it until maybe a few years later, and I started dedicating a proper amount of time to trying to be at least get some more facility on the instrument, a bit more fluent.
I realize a trend happening here, moving from rock to jazz. Let me bring in Jamie and find out Jamie, where were you? 2009, January.
In 2000, January 2009. I can tell you exactly what I was wearing on that date, actually. No, but 2009, I was just finishing Drum Tech, which was a music drum school in Acton, West London. And I was there from 2007 to 2009. And then I started playing drums when I was 11 in high school. I basically saw like it was like I had like a music class, and then it was like an hour lunch break, and usually I would go hang out with my friends for that hour. But what happened was this drummer came in and he started playing, and I just ended up staying there for the whole hour, and I was like, oh my god, this looks really cool. So I started taking lessons, and because of my upbringing and stuff, it was kind of like a good outlet for me to express something at a young age, you know. And I was like most people, you know, I started out playing rock and metal and punk. And then I didn't get into jazz until I was about early 20s. I didn't like the sound of it. You know, I was so used to like high frequency, well-produced music. Like when someone first showed me an Art Blakey record, and I was like, that sounds terrible. You could hear like the pedals squeaking, you know, and it was really bothering me. And then I just wasn't ready for it. But when I went to drum school, like all the drummers who are better, well, just, I don't know, maybe better. I guess that's the right word, but they all play jazz. So I was like, okay, I need to figure that one out a little bit, you know.
I hear you. Rio.
Yes.
Tell me where you were, what you were doing. It's interesting because everybody was a rock star before they got into jazz.
Gosh, right. Okay. Well, 2009, I had just finished sixth form, and I'd started going to college. My interest was actually graphic design. I thought that's what I was going to do as a career because I always had interest in illustration and that kind of stuff. And I think it was like maybe October 2008 at my college, they had free guitar lessons, and my mum had a guitar because she wanted to learn, but she never did. So I kind of just took this guitar along and started taking lessons. And then I kind of realized quite early on that the teacher there was like a good guitarist, but a bad teacher. So I kind of just practiced on my own a bit. And then funnily enough, it was that year, 2009, about June time, I started playing electric bass. And at this point, I had lots of different interests in music. So my mum was a massive Prince fan. Like she literally owned everything he ever released or was a part of on record. My dad was a big fan of Marcus Miller and that whole school of like, you know, Jeff Lorber and the jazz fusion stuff. But I was more into like R&B, hip hop, dance hall, you know, all of them.
That's what we do.
Yeah, you know, but I mean, it did go across, you know, like I would like bands like Jane's Addiction, and then, you know, I'd be listening to Loop the Loop the next day. So yeah, it was quite a broad range of interests. And then I started going to these drop-in sessions on Sundays where you basically just go, it was like ensemble, you just play songs and stuff. And I remember we played Cantaloupe Island, which I feel like is probably an entry to jazz for a lot of people, but that was like the first jazz tune that I had played.
Yeah.
And then I kind of really started getting into it with the mindset of like, you know, if you can play jazz, then you have the facility to play lots of different styles of music. So that's what initially got me interested. And then I just fell in love with the art form of the music. And I started playing double bass, I think, when I was 23. So that would have been 2013. Yeah. So yeah, I was a bit of a late bloomer in that regard. Yeah, and that's where it all began for me.
It's interesting because from what I know of you guys now, you know, I'm looking at very seasoned, very established musicians, educators, award winners, you know, phenomenal musicians. Again, to hear you apart and with different ensembles, and then to hear you together. It is interesting, and then listening to how you come into your own and how you come into the jazz movement. Boris, let me come back to you. You've taken off the glasses.
Oh no.
What was Rio mentioned his first time playing jazz? What was your first time playing jazz, and how did it feel separate and apart from the rock that you were into? If you remember the gig and all
that. I don't think I remember the first one.
What was the earliest memorable one? I'm putting you on the spot.
Yes, I'm very bad with being put on the spot.
No worries, no worries.
Yeah, I remember when I started going to the Tomorrow's Warriors sessions. That's what really made me get deep into jazz.
How did you hear about Tomorrow's Warriors and what even prompted you to go?
A friend was going, a bass player friend, and I heard about it, and so I just went. Yeah,
what was the vibe like when you first got there? What because some people would go and say, no, this isn't my scene. What enticed you, what attracted you into the fold, as it were?
Well, the music for sure, and when I saw Nathaniel Facey play, yeah, I was I was amazed.
Well, that is enough. That is enough.
Yeah.
You call Nathaniel
I wanted
Facey.
I wanted to learn about kind of how to play like that. But,
Just to chime in there as well, actually, that's actually when me and Boris met at Tomorrow's Warriors, because I started going there. I think I started about June 2013.
Mm-hmm.
I'd kind of heard about it through another friend who had started going. He was like, "Yeah, you should come down, man. Like, it's a really cool space. They they really get into like the nitty gritty of the music and stuff." So yeah, that's where we met.
Interesting, very interesting. Jamie, I wanna ask you. You mentioned your upbringing, your childhood, and I want to know, because although I didn't prepare, I did a little research, just a little, to push me through. You were what should I say now? A military child, constantly moving.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
How did you connect to music in that situation? You're moving constantly. How did you connect to music? What were you listening to? What anchored you musically within that transience?
Well, I didn't really get into music properly until I was like 11, really. I wasn't really aware that I was, into it. I was just going to school and traveling a lot and always moving schools and things when I was younger. But I think because I was so into drumming, it was a really good outlet to express something that I didn't have the vocabulary to express myself with words. So it was easier for me to just play. And I wanted to get deeper into playing drumming, and I was more into drumming than I was music. And then that led to me discovering lots of different styles of music and different types of music that I got into, and it kind of just deepened my awareness as time went on.
Cool. It's interesting. I always wonder, why is it that you guys are musicians and I am not? Because I can tell you the first conscious bit of music that came to me, and I was about 3 years old. And it was a song, Young, Gifted and Black, and that has stamped into my consciousness from there then. I didn't even have sense at 3 years old. I didn't even have sense at 40. I'm in my 50s and I still don't have much sense, but hey, that's it. So I wonder, what it takes for people to move into music. Dom, Hertfordshire. Let me just, before I come to the present, let me go to Hertfordshire. I mean, I've always, I don't know anything about Hertfordshire.
Sure.
What is it in Hertfordshire that planted musical seeds within you?
I think there were, I mean, obviously with my dad being a musician, like I was surrounded by it. I have two older brothers and they also played. One of them is also a professional musician. He plays drums. And so I just had lots of opportunity and I was given lots of chances to kind of figure out things, figure out what I wanted to do. And I mean, for a long time, it was just something fun to do. That I took the opportunities. I did like county jazz band. I entered like music competitions. I just kind of, that was a fun thing to do that I was like relatively good at compared to other people because not as many people did it, and I liked that feeling. I think it's a really interesting question because, you know, I think for me, I didn't even really realize that it could be something that I could do full time until much later on. I remember the person that did it for me was probably Sonny Rollins. I was just trying to figure out.
Fair enough.
It's like, how can you make? He was like, he's playing the same instrument that I play, and just emitting so much joy. So far removed, like 50 years later, I'm hearing it and it's making my day. And I want to learn how to do that. I think that really, and then you start going into, there are thousands of people who are inspiring, you know, on all instruments. I think saxophone has a particularly rich history of very deep emotional playing and lots of saxophone players who kind of moved the music forward a little bit. So like, you know, as part of being a saxophone player, you learn Charlie Parker. And I didn't much like it when I first heard him. I wasn't ready for it. But then 5 years later, I was ready for it. And
there you go.
Kind of keep going further down the rabbit hole, I guess.
You mentioned about listening to these musicians and that giving you joy and that, you know, bringing you joy.
Mm-hmm.
For me personally, it's the same when I hear you guys play. When I hear you guys, I watched a video YouTube thing with you guys, and you know, for me it was very enjoyable, and I was actually very proud because you're doing your thing. I mean, people we tend to hark back a lot, but what is happening now is special. Mm-hmm. And what will happen tomorrow is special. You know, I remember the first time meeting Jamie. Jamie came down to the job center and he was actually depping. And that was for me a total blessing. Mm-hmm. Because when he sat and played, in my head, actually Gillian mentioned it to me. I said, you know, yeah, this young man is decent. We're gonna hear more. No, seriously, we're gonna hear more. I remember hearing about Rio before seeing Rio play, and the first time I saw Rio play was with Cedar Ensemble at Eclectic. I still have the footage. And after you looked at the whole, you started looking at the individual parts. You started looking at the individual musicians. And saying, yeah, them people are nice, you know. Boris on the guitar, he still brings a rock sensibility to what he's doing to this day. But then you already know that, Boris, you know. And I hear.
Yes, I knew that.
Yeah, you know, you still bring that rock sensibility. So for me, it is a blessing and a joy to hear you guys play. How did you guys come together to form Stratos and to get the gig at grow?
Oh, I don't know if any of you guys want to take the lead on this one, or should I jump in?
Well, I remember coming in on a jam session that you guys were doing.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, we don't have to say the
Me and
exact
Boris,
details. But
we were doing a jam session with this other demand. I forget what the name of the venue was. It's not even there anymore, actually, but it was basically right by Dalston Junction Station. Been doing this thing for a couple of months. And that particular night, Jamie came down as well. And you just basically came to play in the jam, right? That was the story.
Yeah, just wanted to come and sit in and hang.
Yeah. And then there was someone who basically came down on recommendation from a mutual friend to check out what we were doing. And then, yeah, they were basically, it was it actually Ruben and Jordana that came down, or yeah,
Yes.
I think, yeah, it was.
Yeah, so they came down to kind of check out what we were doing, and then yeah, we basically just opened a dialogue because they were interested in starting something up at Grow, and I think it was you, Boris, and Jamie that were like doing the crux of the liaising, like over comms and stuff, and then we basically just ended up starting a trial.
That's right.
Yeah, and that was April 2016. We started that. And I remember the first gig we did, there was more of us on stage than in the audience, and we were a trio. So, you know, it started from very humble beginnings.
Yes.
But they were really invested in us, and they wanted to really give it a chance. So we basically went month 1, month 2, I think 3 months in, we were still going. And yeah, they were really supportive and like trying to push the night and stuff. And it just, without any pun intended, it grew. Something quite large.
I don't think you realize how important what you just said is, you know, that a venue, and you guys know this, a venue actually saying, we are going to invest in this. This is what we want. We want to bring this into the creative space. We want to bring this into our set of programming. And although it was 3 on stage and 1 off stage in the audience, they didn't say, you know what, this isn't viable. They stuck with it. I'm gonna throw this out. Why do you think Grow is like this? I need to know. Because as a promoter myself, having to deal with venues who the first thing they ask is how many people can you bring 30 or more people into the venue? You know, what sets Grow apart? Why is Grow thinking like this?
Grow are the only people I know who are like that.
There you go. You know,
I mean, they're some of the most open-minded people I've ever met in terms of venue owners. They're very open to just trying things.
For me, I mean, it boils down to 2 things really. It's one, they're incredibly invested in the local community and people. Like, it's a business for people, and it's all about being sustainable within the community and supporting those kind of ideologies. So when you have people with that kind of background, it's gonna, you know, they're gonna give things a chance, and it's gonna have this big community impact. Like, I don't think any of us, when we started, however far down the journey we were when we were playing at Grow, thought that it would end up being what it was. You know, I think we might have hoped, but yeah, it's like we've all had that experience as musicians where we go to a venue and they're like, you know, numbers a bit low today. We're going to drop the fee a bit. Maybe don't do next week. Blah, blah, blah. You know, but no, they were really interested in the music, and that's a big thing. And with that in mind as well, it's the whole storytelling. It's like as musicians, we're telling a story, and in that particular space, it feels like everyone who's there is part of that story.
Yes.
Which is, yeah, it's a very unique experience, which I think is what's made it become so successful over the years.
it is a growth process, because I remember in the early days I used to watch it. I remember, again, as I was saying before, in the early days when Grow just started, 2014 thereabouts, I think 2014, 2015. And I remember watching the space. They were DJing on the canal. Nice. And I used to just watch it. My attention span generally short. And I was spending 2 hours watching these guys play music and wondering if I'd love to do it. So and you feel the ethos, you feel it, even through a screen. I've been privileged to go there and play subsequently but I have to take the time out and big up Grow and the principals behind it, the team behind it, because to see Stratos going 4 or 5 years, that's serious, within the space, that's a bit of longevity there. Mm-hmm. So it speaks to what you guys are doing. It speaks to your talent individually, again, collectively, and how you represent in the space, how you represent Grow. So big up yourselves. And as I said before, you guys have the most picturesque stage in London in the summer.
Yeah, it's beautiful, yeah.
Yeah, man. As I said, I'm yet to come down and see you guys live, but I've seen the footage and I've watched and I've said, respect. Now, Boris, let me come back to you. Boris. If you're in Switzerland still, would you be doing what you're doing? Would you have had the opportunities, the facilities to progress along this vein?
No. Absolutely not. Yeah.
You serious? The home of Montreux Jazz Festival?
Well, I had gotten into jazz music towards the end. I never thought of playing jazz music until I came to London. So there you go. It would have been different for sure.
It's interesting. It's interesting. London, Tomorrow's Warriors. I've seen the progression of Tomorrow's Warriors and the people coming out of Tomorrow's Warriors for the last 30 years, whether it be Baron Walling, people like, Nathaniel Facey, as you mentioned, that sort of thing, right up to yourself, Rio. I remember I have footage of Kasiki Noshi, 2014, as a young musician coming through. And I remember it was a gig, Tomorrow's Warriors gig in Soho, that side. And her mouthpiece was acting up. And she was just soldiering through and playing. But even then, you could see, the quality and the progression. This one, Dom, have you been involved with the Tomorrow's Warriors setup?
I haven't actually, but it's interesting. I actually went to the same school as Cassie, you just mentioned.
There you go.
Did you actually? I didn't know that.
Yeah, she came. We did the same sixth form. Yeah.
Oh, snap.
The connections are always there,
Yeah,
Jamie,
I mean, I wish I'd known about the Warriors when I was a bit younger. I know lots of people who've come through it, and no one really has a bad thing to say about it. And I recommend my students go there when they reach a certain point, and
nice.
Some of them have really benefited from it. So it is a great organisation for sure.
We're gonna come back to your teaching, but so hold that thought. Jamie, were you involved with Tomorrow's Warriors at all?
I went a few times, I remember, but I wasn't really. No, I didn't really go, to be honest. I went a few times, but just to like hang out, and actually, I think Boris invited me a few times. I think, right, Boris?
So
Once, yeah.
Once.
before I go to Dom's teaching, from the three of you, anybody can take this question. What is it that Tomorrow's Warriors is doing, has done, that has equipped musicians to simply just shine on this UK, Europe, global soundscape? What are they doing?
You know what? For me, it pretty much boils down to is that they're actually, the music is accessible through Tomorrow's Warriors. It's like there's, I mean, even myself as a young person, when I was first getting into music and jazz, you know, there was certain reservations and limitations with how far I felt I could get in it. But like the whole inclusivity of Tomorrow's Warriors is that, you know, it's like, you can do this. You can be in this music. This is for you. So it was basically just a space where you could do that. And also the knowledge and the level of the people who actually direct the sessions. Like I owe so much to like Gary Crosby, Nat Facey. Like they pretty much, yeah, they pointed me in the right direction, you know, and it's like that kind of knowledge is invaluable, especially when you come from a background where, you know, you might not necessarily be able to access things that are considered like extracurricular.
Interesting. Boris, what about yourself? Coming into London and getting involved with Tomorrow's Warriors. How has it moved you? How has it helped you? You know, what have you gotten from Tomorrow's Warriors?
It made me obsessed about jazz, which was great, which I learned a lot from. I'm playing with all these great musicians and the peers, and they're all doing so well. It was very inspiring for sure. Yeah.
Can imagine. I've seen it from afar over the last 10 or so years, seeing it grow, seeing the practitioners and the musicians come out of it. And I'm indeed, well, I've been following actually that scene coming right up, the musicians coming right through, you know, and so many fantastic musicians who are excellent creators.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah, I like what. Yeah. I like what they do a lot. I listen to their music, and it's really great. Everybody, the Tomorrow's Warriors, very inspiring.
Yeah, man. Respect. Let me come back to Dom now and teaching. No, I think to teach any at all, one has to be a teacher. For me is a special person, because when I think about myself as a youngster, my teachers were very special, with the patience of Job. You know, you. How do you find teaching? You're doing it, and it must be a labor of love. It couldn't just be for money.
No, of course not.
Yeah, you know.
I mean, I'd say it's a really kind of exciting thing, because it depends so much on forming a relationship with someone and working out how to best help them. Like, let's say, particularly when I'm teaching jazz or like jazz saxophone at a relatively high level, you know, people come to me perhaps to work on certain skills, and I always just try my best to communicate how much enjoyment there is to be had, and how much we can learn from just listening and getting deep into listening. And because I think the thing that makes jazz so powerful for a lot of people is it's a really kind of social music. We're all like, Rio said earlier, it's like telling a story. And when you're in a band with guys like this playing at a high level, you're all listening to each other all the time, and you can interact with each other in real time. But teaching is trying to help people to. It's really trying to help people to like access that and grow the skills to be able to do that eventually, but also kind of trying to do that at every stage of the process. That's how I approach it anyway. It's like you want people to be engaged in having fun with it, even if they may not be that able to play all the stuff they want to, but you can do a lot with a pentatonic scale even, and getting inside the spirit of that and then developing from there.
Okay. I'm seeing a question coming through, so I'm going to put the question forward. Would you see yourselves mastering another instrument? What artists inspired you in the past, and which ones are you currently into? It's meaty. I think people are saying I'm not going deep enough, so they're putting questions in. So, who wants to feel this one?
All right, I'll take it. Good. I think you mentioned right near the start that we're actually pretty much all multi-instrumentalists. So
precisely.
That comes at different levels of interest and depth and stuff. But for me personally, I've really been getting into tenor sax actually. Probably partially because of this guy here.
There you go.
But yeah, for me, there's something about just having a working knowledge of other instruments that I find really interesting, because while the aim of practicing an instrument is to have as much facility and be as open as possible while expressing yourself on that instrument, there are certain sounds and certain idioms that kind of lend towards different instruments. And I find trying those instruments helps me understand why, in certain instances you might pick particular notes or phrase things in a particular way. And it's funny, like coming from playing bass predominantly to playing sax, I find that I have totally different ideas on the saxophone than when I'm playing bass, just at the initial onset. So that's my kind of long-winded answer to that part of the question. As for artists who inspire me and who I'm currently into, I always have to go back to my main man, Paul Chambers. He's just like, when I first got into double bass, he was probably the first bass player that I looked at in any level of depth. He's also one of the first bass players I ever transcribed anything from. And even now, to this day, like literally earlier today, I was working on a Paul Chambers transcription. I think it was, I was trying to figure out what he does with a bow on the song Yesterdays. And yeah, I think it's just, for someone who had such a short time as a recorded musician, he's left such a massive impact on the scene of music. Like pretty much anything from the 50s, it's got him on it, and it's all amazing. So
totally agreed. So
yeah.
Boris, let me ask Boris. Boris, what about you? Would you see
I
yourself
only play
playing another
guitar,
instrument?
I'm afraid.
Pardon me?
So I only play guitar, I'm afraid. Yeah.
So you're not looking to get into another instrument at some point in the future? Getting lessons from Dom or
maybe.
So which
could happen, who knows?
So what artists inspired you in the past, and who are you vibing to now?
let's see. Well, I've been into just about every guitar player in jazz. I think there is. So right now, I'm very much into Wayne Krantz, the guitar player called Wayne Krantz, and yeah, my favorite. And gospel music and anything which is nice on YouTube. Yeah, I'm open really. Yeah, maybe I listen less to traditional jazz, I suppose. My tastes have changed a lot, but I've gone through many periods. Yeah.
That's the interesting thing. Your growth and development over time have you listening to different things, and the fact that you're involved in different things yourself. You know.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it just sometimes you just want to listen to different things. So, and then you want to change, then your tastes change, and you play differently. And that's what it's all about.
Cool. Jamie, do you play anything else other than drums?
I play piano, but not like in public or anything.
What is it, a dirty secret or something? Or?
No, I mean, like I just play piano just for like composing, you know, that's it. Just to like write music. But I have the goals that I have on the drums are already so daunting, so I wouldn't even want to start touching another instrument. You know.
So who are you vibing to? Who are you vibing to? Who are you vibing to now? Within this current landscape, especially
in jazz,
across the board. Music is music.
I've been at the moment. I'm having an electronic phase. So I'm like all these other guys. I go through different periods. I'm really into like Square Pusher.
Mm-hmm.
For me, he sounds like the continuation of Tony Williams.
There you go.
In terms of like the beats and the way that it's programmed, and I'm really into trying to like experiment with pedals and stuff on the acoustic drum kit. So just trying to mess around with sounds and things. But it's weird because like I'm into so much music. I always go back to like Coltrane. Like he's like my hero. So I'll always listen to Coltrane. It's weird. Like one day I'll be like Aphex Twin, Square Pusher, and then I'll be like, oh man, Coltrane live at the half note. You know what I mean? Or like you know, or Elvin Jones at the Vanguard or something. But those that's forever, that stuff. So it's nice to go out and then come back. I feel like that stuff gives you that sense of foundation, and then you can explore different avenues as well. Try to bring it to your own voice.
I have a question for you coming into the chat. Your top 3 drummers of all time. Leave yourself out, by the way.
Top 3 favorite drummers. Oh wow. That's hard, man. Definitely Elvin.
Mm-hmm.
Tony Williams.
Mm-hmm.
And Vinny Colaiuta.
Now, hang on.
Will you guys placing bets?
In the chat. Dom said it before you came out with it. The exact three. So
in that order as well. That's amazing.
No way.
So this is
what?
This is a sort of chemistry. Turn on the
You
left.
see that, Dom? Man, we have that telepathy when we play.
You're predictable, Jamie.
Yeah, no. That is serious.
That's
that
crazy.
Is mad. That there was mad. That's gonna.
That's funny.
Let me ask you guys now about what's happening now. Your reality musically, the reality of London, the reality of the UK. Because I people talk about a London jazz scene. But a London jazz scene comprises of, for instance, Ashley Henry coming out of Leeds like yourself. You understand? It comprises of a Bristol soundscape that is massive. And that, everybody influences everybody. Cardiff, Sheffield, that sort of thing. So for the reality as we see it now and how it has evolved, how moving forward, where do you see your place within the evolution as it is now? You've already contributed individually to what is happening. Where do you see it going, and how do you see yourself contributing and going?
That is a good question. It's kind of strange, really, because I think we've all pretty much established that, a lot of our peers and the people that we played with, like, as we've developed as musicians, they are all of the same people that are pretty much on the forefront of what's happening at the moment. So in that regard, we are technically right in the thick of it, but at the same time, for me, I kind of feel like the thing when people say London jazz, like the London jazz scene, or like UK jazz, there is a certain level of, what's the term I'm looking for here? It's like there's a sort of opposing dichotomy within that said idiom, because it's like, I know, for example, a lot of people don't actually identify with the term jazz at all. And there is that influence and that heritage, and a lot of these guys on the scene, they've checked out all of that stuff, from Louis Armstrong all the way up until like someone more modern like Roy Hargrove, or but it's like, for me, what it boils down to is it's that fusion of what some people would consider the tradition with things that are relevant to us now. And that's like, that could be a totally different soundscape. I mean, it could be Square Pusher, for example. That's not something you would associate with John Coltrane, but it's still relevant to us today. So for me, that's kind of what I see being the progression of the scene, like kind of experimenting more with those things that we identify with today and mixing it with ideas of the tradition and other things. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with that.
Cool. Anybody else wanna feel that question? Because go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, I think it's like, it's sort of an unanswerable question, because like the idea of what the London jazz scene is, there are all of these different scenes within jazz in London. Like there are lots of people playing like very kind of like a UK flavour of traditional straight ahead jazz, like post bop at a very high level, who are interested in like developing that, but playing it within the kind of style of straight ahead jazz. There are lots of people playing with like more of a kind of ECM influence, more kind of European, like almost neoclassical, improvised, and some neoclassical music inspired in some cases. And then you have other people like being more inspired by like the hip hop end of things. And I think the beauty of jazz is that it can go in all of these different directions, because that word doesn't really mean anything at this point.
It actually does. It actually does. When I speak about the London jazz scene, I say tongue in cheek, because for me, anybody who you hear speak about the London jazz scene, they're ignorant of what is happening and what has taken place. As you mentioned, there are different aspects of jazz within the city and the country alone. There are the Afro-Latin side of things that people like Lucky Terra bring to the table. There's a sort of modal spiritual side that people like Emanative, for instance, bring to the table. there's a lot of producer-led things going on. You've heard of the new record with Floating Points and Farrah Sanders and you know, which is a fantastic record.
Amazing.
You had people like back in the day, Mecca 83. I don't know if you guys know about that producer who brought an album forth about 10 years ago called Rise. Wonderful album. So different people are doing different things. Ezra is doing the Afro jazz sort of thing. And I think you mentioned it, Rio, and I think this has been happening from time immemorial. Jazz is reflecting the environment that it is in, and it takes from the environment that it is in. So what is happening now are people are saying, oh, we're bringing in grime and dance. It is what is happening. It is what is happening, you know, and that is a continuum from then until now, until after, you know.
I mean, even if you go further back, like even back in the 40s, you know, you could have given a very broad definition of, you know, jazz being, you know, music of Black origin with influences relevant at the time, you know, like for example, when there was the whole Latin jazz thing that was happening back then, you know, that definition was applicable then, and it's that same definition could be applicable with what happens now as well. It's just sound.
Imitate life, imitate art, and the cycle continues. I have one for Dom, that a question for Dom that involves Boris. Now, as I understand it, that you've been working on a couple of compositions from Boris, Dom. What is I'm getting the state secrets right here in the chat. So, what is the plan? Is we going into the studio to put something together?
Yeah, I'm like in the last lockdown last year. In the longer one where we weren't really doing much, I just kind of had this idea that I've been wanting to write music for a long time, and and this band's been going for, I've been involved for 3 years now, and it's been a very consistent thing, and we've been playing every week, and so I just thought it would be great if we all like started writing music and kind of developing a sound that was distinct from playing the music of the people we're influenced by, which we still love to do. But I thought it would be an interesting thing to just see if we can develop a voice with our own material. And like Rio's written some stuff, Boris has written a few tunes, I've written a couple of things, and I guess the idea would be to record and see what can happen with that. I mean, I think we all have access to ways of recording when things open up a little bit more. I think that's a reasonable thing to expect in the near future, for sure.
I'm excited by it because, again, the individual. One of the questions I was gonna ask, especially you, Rio, is when are you coming up with your individual project? You know, so hold that thought. I know Jamie has his project. I've been blessed to be able to showcase it. You know, Nugget Trio, among others. He plays with Emily Francis, wicked pianist, you know, that sort of thing. So everybody here, yourself, Dom, yourself, Boris, Rio, and Jamie, you're all composers and writers in your own right. And your music, when you're doing your individual things, vary. And I think that's the exciting part, because I'd love to hear what Boris is coming with based on what I hear him play. So I want to see what's in his mind and how it sounds. So I'm looking forward to that. So I assume then that there's a Stratos EPR something coming through at some point in the year, or?
Well, I mean, it's something we've spoken about for sure. Yeah, you know, I remember us having a conversation towards the end of last year about, you know, trying to just develop things, see how they go, lay things down. It's just it's a matter of time more than anything, I'd imagine.
Oh, time is the master.
Yeah, we have to do it.
It is. I've completed the hour that I was given. I still feel like vibing. I don't know how you guys feel. I don't know how the powers that be feel. I'm not getting a sign from heaven or in the chat or anything. So, this a sign came, and the sign is in the form of a question, and it is, can you tell us your favorite piece of gear or instrument? You know what? I was gonna say anyone. Boris, we'll start with you. Your favorite piece of gear / instrument?
E strings.
That's a good one.
They know you. They know you.
Yeah. Well, my guitar. Yeah, there we go. My Les Paul. Yeah, I love it. That's the only good. I've had it for many years, and that's the only one electric guitar I have.
What kind of guitar is it? Educate me.
It's a Les Paul Gibson guitar, and it's been broken. I've been broken many times as well.
Well, that's a sign of a good
it's had
musician.
a life. There we go. Yeah.
Jamie, what about yourself?
My favorite is the drums, and my favorite part of it is the vibe cymbal. I've got a few.
I'm coming back to you. I'm going to ask you about Zildjian, but let me ask Dom, because I'm interested to hear what Dom says, since Dom plays so many instruments.
Yeah, I mean, it's always going to come back to my tenor. I mean, I got a couple of tenors, but I've got a particularly beautiful Con 10M from 1938.
See?
And I went through quite a long time of like having a saxophone for a year or so, but this one is here to stay in my life.
I hear you.
And I'm getting quite into pedals as well, guitar pedals on the saxophone, and that's kind of a completely different instrument almost. It's like turning into a completely different sound world. So I'm not sure I have a favorite pedal there, but it's got to be the saxophone. It all comes from there.
I hear you. Rio, what about yourself?
Now, you know what? This is actually kind of a difficult question because for those of you who know me, I actually have quite a large collection of instruments and gear. So over the years, I've accumulated like somewhere in the region of about 60 different instruments. And there's just, oh God, it's hard. It's actually hard. I mean, I think I'm gonna take the safe road, and it's gonna have to be, the old girl back here, good old Henrietta.
Yes, you named her.
Yeah. She holds me down. She treats me good. I treat her good. That's where it is. But there's a lot of things that I find interesting. Largely because of Boris, I also started exploring pedals as well. I fell in love with the freeze pedal in particular, because it gives you access to things that just aren't naturally available on an instrument like this. It's quite exciting, really.
What you did? What because of me?
Pedals, explore pedals.
What I see
quietly, right.
What I see quietly emerging is that Boris has a significant influence on the group. Quietly doing it. It's all good. Now you know.
Very unassuming, but he's kind of the heart of the band in a lot of ways, even if it is just for his one-liners.
That's too much.
Jamie, let me come back to you and ask you about Zildjian. That's how it's pronounced?
Yeah, Siljan, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I know you're a wicked drummer and all, but how did you get to be one of their ambassadors?
It was, I just got lucky, really. I was just playing in my studio, and one of the like people that work for them was like just checking out like people around this block of studios, and then I just started talking to someone, and then they were asking about my social media and things, and I just kind of, it was just random. They were just like, "Oh, would you want to be endorsed?" And I was like, "Yeah." You know, yeah, and then that's kind of leading to other things too, which is cool.
Respect. I see this brand all over the place, and you know, and I see Jamie and Darcy. I say, all right, cool. I have some big friends. In this music thing, you know. So it's all good. Questions still coming. One of the questions is what's your favorite chord?
Oh my god. Oh, favorite chords. I don't know, man. That's such a broad question, isn't it? It's all contextual, really, isn't it? I would say one chord I've kind of been messing about with lately is like the 7#9 chord, which kind of, you know, you hear that a lot in, you know, like gospel and shout music, and yeah, it's used in jazz quite a lot. I've actually got my piano here, so I can play a 7#9 chord.
Please, so, like, I'm learning as we go.
Yeah,
and I know everybody else is.
That kind of sound. So yeah, that thing.
That's the Hendrix chord, isn't it?
But hang on, I've heard that chord in a fella track.
Legit, yeah.
Straight up. So gospel, shout, fella, you know, and it's interesting. So this chord is a serious chord then. Very serious. So Dom, what's your favorite chord?
Favorite chord today is being like a
today. I love it.
A minor major chord.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's been playing around with like how to get there and out, get in and out of that kind of sound.
You're on the instrument now?
No, but Rio can play it for us.
All right, cool. Rio, you're the designated chord player.
That thing, yeah.
Try again.
Oh, could you not hear it?
No.
Oh.
Oh yeah.
It's interesting. I say I'm learning. Boris, what's your favorite chord?
Oh, you muted.
You're muted.
You hear me?
Yeah.
You hear me? Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe major triad with what is it, with the nines?
Oh yeah.
With the 9.
Major triad with 9s.
1, 3, 5, 9.
Second with 9.
Let's hear it, Rio. Let's hear it.
I don't know what you mean. Like, wait, what? What do you get into? Oh, he's getting his guitar.
Getting technical. But you know what? I'm learning.
It's not that funny, but. Your audio is horrible, Boris.
Okay.
That kind of thing. It's not that, is it?
He's frozen.
You're frozen, Boris.
It's frozen.
He's dropping out. Him gone.
Gone, yes. Well, until he comes back. Jamie, what's your favorite chord?
I like dissonant chords.
Fair enough.
Good attention, yeah.
I could play you a dissonant chord on the drums if you want.
Please do.
Okay.
I have no problems with that.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that. I like that.
Oh,
That can work. That can work. That can work. So between the dissonance, all the other chords, as I say, I'm actually now getting very excited about you guys going into the studio and launching something at Grow. I'll come down and DJ for you guys and introduce the night, that sort of thing.
Hey, that'd be amazing, you know.
So
Yeah, man.
well, I've put it out there in the ether, but I am coming though. We're coming down. Gillian and I are coming down. Because a nice vibe right out there on the water. You know? It's a very nice vibe. There aren't any. Oh. Should I ask this one? Favorite time signature?
Are you leave with that, Jamie?
Oh.
Let me ask. Favorite places that you've played?
Ooh, that's hard. I mean, obviously, it's gonna be growing it.
I know, Grow. No, I know. Look. We know Grow is up there, straight up. That is the assumption. So we just put Grow aside, basically. You know. But other than Grow, favorite places that you played?
Oh God, I'm gonna need to have a think. Maybe one of you guys could take
Can it be a festival?
Any gig. It could be an intimate gig. It could be a GW Jazz gig for you, Jamie. I hope you say a GW Jazz gig. But any gig, it doesn't matter because it is how it moves you. Whether you're playing in a small intimate place or a big festival, it doesn't matter.
One of something that comes to mind was playing the Afro Punk Festival in New York. That was really inspiring, just because of the scenario that just the whole exposure and what was going on, and the purpose of the festival as well was really deep. That was an amazing experience.
Can imagine. I've always wanted to go. We'll see how that goes. Dom, what about you?
I wasn't sure what to think until you said intimate venue that made you feel something, and where Kansas Smitty's used to be. There's such a tiny room. There's like 50 capacity, and so if 5 people turned up to your gig, you felt like you were doing really well. And I loved playing in there because it would just, if loads of people turned up, it would get really sweaty, but everyone would still be listening. And I've played the opposite of that, some much larger stages, but I kind of feel like that you can really get deep if you're in really close quarters with people who are trying to go there with you. You can really feed off that energy.
I know the feeling. I can imagine. I'll tell you, after I hear from Rio and Boris, I'll tell you my favorite gig that I've DJed, or one of my favorite gigs. So what about you? What about you, Rio? What's the favorite gig or place you play?
It's a hard question, but I think one of the ones that I have very strong memories and happy memories from was playing at Omira with Maria when we had our album launch. It was just the energy. It was like this packed room. Like, it's not the world's biggest venue or anything, but it was like, it kind of felt like everything that we had been working up to until that point had just kind of come alive in that evening, basically. And that's an experience that I don't think I'll ever forget.
Nice. That's a blessing to experience things like that, you know. So you cherish your memory like that. Boris, what about yourself? Favorite place to play, favorite gig, whatever.
Oh, you're muted again.
Oh, it's muted. It's muted.
There we go.
Oh yeah.
I can't think of it. I'm sorry, but I can play the chord now.
No, not the chord. We moved past the chord.
No.
I need to know the favorite place that you've played, favorite gig you've played.
I'm sorry, I don't know. I can't answer. Yeah.
Well, it will come. That means it hasn't come yet. Before I tell you about my favorite gig, one of my favorite gigs, Ruben says, you know, it's great to learn a bit more about your histories and you know, thank you. Well, Ruben is from Grow. He thanks you guys for the kind words about Grow. You know, they've always loved the sound of Stratos. And he said it was a bit of a slow builder at first, but you know, they had faith and they knew that others would love the vibe. And I think, Ruben, you're listening, that is the mark of a true music person in control of a venue who really has the creative in mind and the growth of the creative and the growth of the organization. So big up yourself. I hope I get to meet you because I'm coming down. One of my favorite gigs as a DJ was playing to some elderly people. Gillian and I did a project, Music and the Elderly, and what we would do is go speak to the elderly about music that impacted on them when they were young, coming right up. And they would give me all of this music. I'd write them down, and then I would source them, go back and have a sort of party where I play the music back to them. And it was just reliving all those times, and the impact was powerful. And I remember we did one where I think Gillian dropped some, either it was some calypso or Afrobeat. And I'm telling you, the throng of elderly people with an average age of, I think, 75. Average age. So you have some going up into 80s and stuff like that. Were on the dance floor, moving and putting me to share. Look, I'm going to share that footage because I have that footage. We recorded that footage. And for me, that was just so much of a blessing. So much of a blessing. Because when you can bring joy to your elders, for me, that was a blessing. And it was right here in where I live in Clapham. You know? And I've played big stages, I played Jazz Cafe, that sort of thing. But that little gig, and then some of our own gigs that we've played, you know? So, and you realize sometimes it's not the big festivals, it's just that intimate room that Dom was talking about. You know, that vibe with some of your friends, or your friends, some of the musicians bring their parents, and you know, they sit and they wonder, and they look at their children and say, this is my son or my daughter. That for me brings a lot of energy, a lot of love, you know, that sort of thing. Yeah, man. So I think that on that note, we are going to close it, because I think I could be here talking about a lot of chords and that sort of thing. But guys, I have to say, I am looking forward to coming and seeing you live this summer. Gillian and I are coming, and we're gonna be out front, having a pint, looking over the canal and listening to the vibe. Because again, Stratos for me, the individuals themselves, for me, are massive. And then some of those individuals, that's why I'm looking forward to something recorded. But thank you for chatting to me, for chatting with me, for sharing with me.
Yeah.
I need to thank Grow. I need to thank Grow also for what they've done over the past 6-7 years with the organization, for supporting creatives across the board, for having faith and supporting jazz musicians, because again, it's not easy, and they're basically moving against the grain of what a lot of venues and promoters are doing. I can tell you that, so big up to Grow. But continue to do what you do, continue to make good music, continue to contribute, and continue to grow. That's all I'm gonna say. Big up to David for the Zoom feed and the technicals. Big up to Anthony. Yeah, big up to Anthony for putting this together. And with that, again, for everybody who don't know, my name is Gordon Wedderburn. I'm from GW Jazz. It was a pleasure being with you guys. It was a pleasure doing this. And let us go with God and sign out. Guys, take care and blessings.
Take care. Thank you so much.
Cool.
Gordon, thank you so much for this beautiful Zoom hang and interview.